Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to my local area while I'm here in Durham in England. So we're going to go down to Newton Aycliffe, which is a couple of miles to the southwest, and for this one we are having a taste of another beer from the Steam Machine Brewing Company. This is my third review from these guys. So for this one we're going to have a taste of the Session. So this isn't my first time trying this beer. I've had it a couple of times actually when they had their pop-up bar in Durham. And it's really quite nice. It's an interesting beer, this one. It's some kind of hybrid of a kind of amber ale and a sort of session IPA. And I do remember quite enjoying this, but I can't remember exactly what it's like. So I'm glad that I'm going to be able to do a more kind of in-depth review for you here on the channel. So as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, of course, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Steam Machine before. No doubt I will do a couple more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the different English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Steam Machine Brewing Company then. So Steam Machine Brewery are based in Newton Aycliffe, and they were founded back in 2015 by Nick and Gulen Smith. Nick, of course, is English. I believe he is actually from this area, and Gulen is actually from Turkey. So they started the company up with a small business loan after they returned from the Channel Islands, which was where Nick had been working as a science teacher. There does seem to be a kind of common theme here. The guys at the Durham brewery, of course, were science teachers as well. Maybe the kids here are just bad and drive people into brewing, so maybe that will happen to me as well at some point. But the brewery itself is apparently an old wartime munitions factory, where they also have their brew room as well, which is where people can come and try the beers, eat some food and just enjoy a good time at the brewery. So I do need to go and check that out actually before I head back over to Sweden in August. But over the last few years they've been gradually expanding their capacity, and they received mentoring as well from Richard Branson after Nick shared a train journey with them, and they're doing pretty damn well from what Nick told me. They're looking to open up a permanent kind of bar site in Durham. The brewery's doing well, they're expanding their capacity, and they're looking to introduce a few new beers over the coming years as well. So good times for these guys. As I say, they produce some really nice beers. The red IPA is quite nice. Their IPAs, their lighter beers, do tend to be somewhat in the middle of kind of American and English style beers, whereas the stout, the big stout that they do, the treacle toffee stout, that is an absolute monster of a beer, and I really do recommend that you have a go at that if you get the chance. It really is worth it. So yeah, a really interesting brewery, this one. So have a look at the website below and see all the different beers that they do. But that's all you need to know about them just now. Like I say, if you're interested, check out the brewery website and you can learn a little bit more. But let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So like I said to you, this one comes in at 4.2%. It's some kind of hybrid between sort of amber ale and an IPA from what I remember. It's a kind of English IPA, sort of English amber IPA is probably a good way to describe this one. But there you can see the nice Steam Machine artwork. I do like the artwork that these guys put on their cans. They're really nice actually. But yeah, 4.2% beer this one. Tells you a little bit on the back here. It says the Session, all the flavour, all the aroma, all the ale quaffing goodness of a bold Steam Machine brew. But after a couple, you'll still know the difference between a tin whistle and a tent pole. So yeah, that's quite a nice wee thing. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. So yeah, oh, the can doesn't want to open. There we are. Just need to fix that. Bit of a dodgy ring pull on this one, I should say. But yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. Don't know if we're going to get much head on this one actually. It is a pretty fresh can though from what I gather. But yeah, you can see, there's the head starting to form now, no worries at all. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a nice sort of coppery amber colour. The head on this one, when it was around, has faded away again. But the head on this one was a really nice, quite, it's a very thin foamy layer. I think it's kind of a creamy, very slightly beigey colour, this one, more than anything else. But you can see nice kind of coppery amber colour, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and quite a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this beer, but the darkness of it does stop you seeing that kind of as fully as you might. But yeah, you can smell some of the nice kind of malty aspects of this beer. You can smell the amber ale qualities coming out of this one just as you move it around, but there's a little bit of hoppy character there too. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. Yeah, have to admit, I remember with this beer thinking the malt base smelled really nice. It has definitely got an English malt base to it. And it's odd that, because as I've said in numerous reviews, I don't like English bitters and things, and they do tend to be a little bit more malty, but I like the way that the malt base smells in this one. So yeah, with this one, you can pick up a nice bit of bready character in there. There's a good bit of a, I don't know if it's quite as strong as caramel, it's definitely biscuity at least, but there is a sort of, there is definitely a brown sugar element to this one. Maybe even slightly toasted, but it's got a nice almost kind of dark brown bready quality to it. It's definitely got a grainy element to it. That's one of the kind of characteristics of English malt, and there's definitely some English malt in here. But yeah, nice malty backbone to this one. It does, I would say, it does lean a little bit more towards the malty side of things than the hoppy side of things. I think it's definitely fair to say that about this beer. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of brown grainy bready character in there, wholemeal bread maybe, sort of. Definitely a kind of darker, I do think it's caramel, to be quite honest with you. I wasn't too sure about that, but I think it's definitely a sort of richer caramel. There's a little bit of biscuit in there as well. If you take it in a little bit more deeply at the front of the nose, you can kind of get, if you just use it at the front of your nose, you'll just get a little bit of that almost biscuity, kind of digestive biscuity, grainy kind of thing going on with it, which is quite nice. But there's definitely a little element of earthy hop to it. I do think there's English hops in this beer, to be quite honest. It's got a little bit of earthy character. It's got a little bit more of that kind of herbal sort of floral thing going on with it, which again is a characteristic of English hops. And then there's a little bit of a grassy note too. In terms of fruitiness, there is a little bit of a kind of citrusy note. Maybe there's a wee touch of a candied red fruit in there. It might, you know, yeah, maybe just a little bit of a candied red fruit. But there's definitely a sort of grassy, kind of, not quite lemony, but a grassy sort of citrusy note coming out of this beer. So it is quite an interesting one. There's bits of it that smell slightly American, there's bits of it that smell English. It's that grainy character that really makes you think this of an English beer. If you took that away, you'd probably think it was a kind of an American amber or something like that. But I think definitely the malt, from what I remember, this beer had a definite English malt base. So let's have a go at this one then and see how we get on. So this one's a session 4.2% beer from the Steam Machine Brewing Company in Newton Aycliffe, County Durham in England. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, it's interesting that actually, because the can-conditioned version has quite a different. It does actually feel quite different from the tap version. From what I remember, the tap version did actually feel a little bit thicker than this. This one feels really clean actually, which is quite interesting. It's quite a clean, wet mouthfeel to this beer, which does actually is really interesting that. But it's easy drinking. You know, when they say it's a session beer, it's definitely a session beer. So yeah, it's interesting that, because the flavour is kind of like I remember it, but just that mouthfeel is quite different. So if you have a chance with this beer, try it on tap at the brewery, buy a can, take it home, and you'll kind of see the difference. You'll see what I mean. But yeah, so with this beer, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of brown bready character, as I say. You can feel with this one, there must be a little bit of pale malt in there, because you can just feel that a little bit underpinning the beer, but on top of that, you start to get the more kind of grainy, brown bready qualities that I was talking about, the English malt coming out with this. In the middle of your palate, there's a little bit of a sweet caramel there, but it leans more towards the biscuity side of things. It's more caramelly in the aroma than it is in the flavour, I would say, and it's the grainy, sort of bready characters a little bit that dominate the malt base, I would say. But yeah, it's a nice beer that I like how everything goes together. It's just easy drinking. It definitely, you know, there are one or two aspects of it that do maybe lean towards the American side of things a little bit, but for me, this one, it's a kind of, it basically is to me it comes across as an English amber ale, to be quite honest. The hoppiness, it's maybe a little bit more hoppy than you'd expect of an English kind of real ale, amber ale if you like. But the, I would say definitely just the quality, the way that this beer comes across is quite similar to just to an English amber ale. So on the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice sort of earthy quality there. As you come further forward, you get a little bit of a herbal note to it. It's the English hops coming out there, and then as you come further forward towards the front of the palate, you get a little, to the front corners of the palate, sorry, you get a nice little bit of floral character. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and just behind the front curve of the palate, that's of course where you get that little oily bubble, where these nice kind of juicy, fruity notes come out of the beer. So yeah, with this one, it's definitely a sort of grassy, citrusy quality that's in there. There maybe is in the aftertaste, you do get just a little kind of touch of a sort of, maybe there's just a wee kind of touch of a red candied fruit, but not really much at all. It really is more of a kind of grassy, not quite lemongrassy, but it just has that almost citrusy, grassy quality to it. It's a really just kind of, it's a very straight up beer, this one. It's an easy drinking one, but it's quite satisfying at the same time. I think that's a good way to kind of summarise it. Is this the best beer that they do, in my opinion? I wouldn't say so. I have to admit, I do quite like the red IPA. In terms of their lighter beers, I really do like the red IPA, and in terms of just generally of the brewery, my favourite beer is the Treacle Toffee Stout. That beer is a monster, you know, that's a really top quality. A really top quality Imperial Stout, that one. I think that one's maybe a level above these other beers actually, but this, in terms of it's a satisfying beer, and it's nice and easy drinking, it's nice and clean, and it's a good sort of summer days beer. You know, it says it's a session beer, that's exactly what it is, so you know, you can't fault them for that. The red IPA though, I think if I was choosing one of the lighter beers from these guys, I probably would go for the red IPA over this one. But some people, this one I think, it could be that this is a good gateway beer for sort of real ale drinkers to come into the craft beer scene a bit more. You know, maybe they'll try this one because it's along the same kind of alcohol lines, the same sort of ABV lines as the real ales, and then they'll think, oh, they've got a red IPA, let's have a go at that. You know, I think maybe that's a little bit what Nick was going for with this beer. I'm speculating, of course, but I do think this is what this beer is a good kind of gateway beer for real ale drinkers to come into craft beer a little bit more. I think that's a good way to summarise the beer as well. But in terms of the mouthfeel, I would say, yeah, quite a light-bodied beer, this one. It's got soft carbonation. It does actually come across really smooth. It's a wet mouthfeel, this one. It's not quite oily. It's very wet and very clean, I would say. The malt base in this one, there's a little bit of sweetness to it, but it's more got a kind of, it has got a little bit of graininess to it more than anything. And as I say, there's a little bit of sweetness in the middle of your palate. There is a little bit of hoppy bitterness to this one. It's quite smooth though because of the herbal and earthy qualities that are present in this. I think I'm pretty sure it's English hops they've used in this, just going by the flavours. And then there's a little touch of a fruity note to this one. But overall, like I said, it says it's a session beer. That's exactly what it is. It is quite reminiscent of an English amber ale, but it's maybe a little bit more kind of hoppy and bitter than you'd normally expect from a real. I think it definitely has a few more IBUs in it than you would get in your kind of standard English ale. And I think a good way to summarise this one is as a sort of gateway beer for real ale drinkers to come into craft beer a little bit more. I'd love to see these guys do a kind of more, I would love to see them do a little bit of a kind of beast IPA, you know, just go for it and do a 6.5, 7%er and just, you know, hop the hell out of it. I think that would be a really interesting move for these guys to make a proper American IPA, or go for a kind of New England style IPA or something like that. Because as I say, their stout side of things, that definitely leans towards the American side of things. But for me, when it comes to the brewery, I think Nick kind of leans a little bit more towards the kind of English real ale style of things a little bit with the lighter beer. So it's an interesting balance they've got there. And of course, when you're reviewing different breweries, you will pick up little quirks like that. So it's an interesting beer, this one. As I say, definitely a kind of good gateway beer, I think, for kind of real ale drinkers. So if you like English amber ales, I think you will quite enjoy this one. It's just got a little bit more of a kind of hoppy edge to it. But again, it's another nice beer, and I do think Steam Machine have a good future ahead of them. As I say, I'd love to see them do an IPA, an American IPA, like a West Coast, and maybe a New England one. I'd love to see them do a Scotch ale as well, because they have kind of proved that they're high alcohol beers, that they are really capable of doing kind of beastly beers with that. So interesting times ahead for these guys, and I'm sure you'll see more reviews from me on them in the fairly near future. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below if you have tried it yourself. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Steam Machine, of course, as well, and do let me know some other breweries that you guys would like to see me review. So check out my social media, check out my other reviews and all these sorts of things. Go and have a look at Steam Machine Brewing on Facebook and stuff like that. But until the next time, it's Slans just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. The session from the Steam Machine Brewing Company in Newton Aycliffe in County Durham in England. Cheers.